Happy back to school day, Angelinos. Forgot to fade the music out before I screamed at you. That was noise pollution. It's back to school day here in Southern California. Yeah, August the freaking 14th. Summer was like 6.5 weeks long. It's weird, man. It's a weird time. It's a weird time. When we were kids, I'm fairly certain we went back to school after Labor Day, and I think a lot of schools still do, but I don't know, not ours. So anyway, hi again. I'm Dan Bespris. It's Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. Today we're talking Washington, the Wizards. I'm the Wiz, and nobody beats me. Actually, that's not true. Wizards lost 64 games last year. They are, I would say elbow deep, but it's really more like the full arm, shoulder deep in a tank. And they are not coming out of it anytime soon. The Wizards do have a couple of veterans on the team. Whether they're there at the end of the year is anybody's guess. But to no one's surprise, our friends over at FanDuel, partners here on the Believe Network, on Old Man Squad Fantasy Basketball. We love having them aboard. It legitimizes us. FanDuel Sports, the sports book, I guess I should say over there, has the Wizards with a season win total mark of 20 and a half. Yowza. Yowza, I say. That is a remarkably low number. And yet, they would have gone under that number last year. Just mentioned, the Wizards only won 18 games last season, and I have no reason to think that they're better other than, now they're no longer led by Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. Now they're led, I guess, by CJ McCollum. But like, are CJ and Chris Middleton actually going to play this year? Let's get right into that. We'll start with McCollum, who was acquired this offseason in a trade with the New Orleans Pelicans that involved Jordan Poole. This was a exclusive contract type of deal. McCollum is on a $31 million expiring. The assumption is they'll try to flip him. If they can't, who cares? He comes off the books anyway. The Wizards have almost no money committed next season. This year, their salary cap is about $150 million. Next year, they have $26 million committed. How crazy is that? Very, by the way, is the answer to that. And the only guys that you look at that board and you're like, oh, well, this is a guy that they'll probably have to give some money to come back. There really isn't one. Tristan Vukcevic, maybe you could put in the category of like young guy they might want to try to bring back. He's on a two-way right now, so like they're going to have to change what they're doing with him regardless. But when you look at the young guys on this Wizards roster, Alex Sarr, Bilal Coulibaly, Bub Carrington, Cam Whitmore, who they also got this offseason, Kyshawn George, Justin Champagnie, all of those guys have either team options for the next couple of seasons or are just signed for the next couple of seasons. All of them. So contractually, the Wizards are in a very enviable spot, especially entering sort of like the deepest, darkest portal of the rebuild. But anyway, what does that mean in terms of like illustrating what we think this team is going to do? CJ McCollum has been among the most consistent fantasy players of this generation. The fluctuations in McCollum's numbers have largely been free throw related. Everything else has been damn near the same for like a dozen straight years. I mean, look at it. Here, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to share. Here's a basketball reference tab. Yeah, we're doing something a little different on today's show. There's no way you guys are going to be able to see those numbers on YouTube, so I'll try to zoom in a little bit. It's a little bit better, I guess. Got to get this window out of the way. Get that out of the way. I need people to be able to see it. Enough with these ads. Their ads are everywhere. Look at this. So, yeah, first 2 seasons in the league, he didn't do all that much. And then starting in 2015, so precisely 10 years ago, he averaged on the points side 21, 23, 21, 21, 22, 23, 22, 20. I know those are 2 seasons blended together. 21, 20, and 21. A pillar of consistency. You guys want to hear rebounds? It's actually like this exercise with McCollum is not all that illuminating, but it is hilarious. Rebounds over that stretch. 4.3, 3.6, 3.4, 3, 4.4, 4.7. Ooh, 5.1. That was a big one. 5.7, 4.6, 4.1. I switched over to assists halfway through that one. I ruined it, guys. Rebounds is even more consistent than that. Assists have bounced around a little bit more because there were seasons where Dame was and was not there in Portland and so on and so forth. Blocks have been almost right around 0.4, 0.5 every season. Steals have bounced around a little bit. He's gotten as high as 1.3 during part of a season with the Pelicans, although we know that they tend to be a little bit inflatey with defensive stats. Portland, his high was 1.2. Most of the time, he's been right around 1.9 or 1. There really almost hasn't been a more consistent fantasy player for the last 10 years than CJ McCollum. I didn't say consistently great. I just said consistent. The one thing that's held him back is that very early in his career, McCollum looked like he was going to be a pretty good free throw shooter. 83, 91, 84, 83, 76, 81. And then something happened around COVID time where he kind of became a bad foul shooter most of the time. He did have one good year last season with New Orleans. He shot 83%, but mostly he's been high 60s, low 70s since whatever it was kind of blipped off for him. But field goal has been incredibly consistent as well. He's been right around 45% almost every year. What does that mean for CJ? Well, at least you have a pretty good idea of what he's going to do. The question is, how often will he do it? And last year, because the free throw number was very low and the assists were also kind of on the lower side for him, at least lately, he wasn't inside the top 100 in 9 category leagues. Surprising, I know. If you're punting free throw, he was around number 90. If you were punting field goal, he was around number 90. So, like, either way, it turned out okay. And he wasn't a bad pick necessarily, but he also wasn't a good pick. Now he's the veteran leader. We can assume. I know Middleton's there, but Chris Middleton's body is made out of peanut brittle at this point. CJ McCollum is the veteran leader on this Wizards tank train that we assume is going to be on the trade block, but also maybe just kind of rehabbing his own value or trying to steer a bunch of young guys to learn how to play better basketball. Whatever the case, if you're drafting him, you have to assume, right or wrong, that he's not going to be there after the trade deadline, which in my opinion probably wipes him out as a head-to-head choice. Doesn't completely wipe him out on the games cap side, but his sort of wonky percentages might wipe him out on the games cap side. And I'll give you, it could be kind of fun for CJ for the first couple months of the year. Because, like, look around you. Who the hell else is going to be taking shots on this team if Chris Middleton is only playing some of the time and Alex Sarr is not an initiator and Kyshawn George isn't an initiator and Coulibaly isn't really an initiator and Bub kind of is? But are these guys really going to be jacking up shots the way that, like, Jordan Poole did? Poole took 15.5 shots a game last year. Alex Sarr was at 12.5. That was the second highest mark on the Wizards last season, especially once Kyle Kuzma got moved, although Kuz didn't really do much last year either. He was hurt most of the time on the Wizards. So you replace Jordan Poole, 15.5 shots a game, with CJ McCollum, who was actually higher than that last year. He was at 18 shots a game. And it feels like CJ could probably get a big chunk of shots. And I know that Cam Whitmore is going to soak up some of those as well. But I think while CJ's upright, he'll probably do something similar to what he did last year, maybe even better assist numbers if he's going to be kind of orchestrating a bit on this young team. So games cap side, I'm okay with him going around 100. Head-to-head, I don't think I would do it. Most head-to-head leagues are unlimited. And that's where I stand on CJ McCollum. Chris Middleton, I mean, he is the prototypical fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Fool me 3 times, shame on me. Fool me 4 times, also shame on me. But don't worry, we haven't gone down that path, because after that 1 year where the Bucks were like, yeah, he's almost ready to go. Don't worry. I think that was 2022-23 in kind of looking at the Chris Middleton game log here. Remember, I tell this story once every single season. Beginning of that year, I had my fantasy draft on the Sunday before the season started. So literally 2 days before the season began. And I drafted Chris Middleton in a bunch of spots because, he's coming off a pretty solid 2021-22 season. Yeah, he missed 16 games, but he averaged 20, 5.5, and 5.5 with 1.2 steals. Great percentage, great free throw percent, good three-pointers numbers. It looked like it was just going to be sort of coasting along at another Chris Middleton type of year. And then on the Monday before the season started, the Bucks came out and said, oh, yeah, Chris is not quite ready to go. Not going to be ready on opening day. 6 weeks later, he tried to played for like a week, and then missed another 6 weeks. Ended up playing 33 games that year, and that was when I completely lost trust in not only Chris Middleton, but also the Bucks injury reporting. And so the following year, I was like, no, there's no chance I'm doing this. And then this past season, he is coming into the year off bilateral ankle surgeries. So there was no chance I was taking the plunge there. So he's on a run now of 33, 55, and 37 games each of his last 3 seasons. I want nothing to do with Middleton. I don't care that if he's actually healthy coming into this year, he's probably going to put up okay numbers on a very bad team while they, again, try to show that he's not dead. Like, Chris Middleton, so with CJ McCollum, they don't really have to rehab his value. CJ's been CJ for the last dozen years, and nothing really has changed. With Middleton, like, the funny thing is, he's old, but he's not painfully old. He just turned 34. So, yeah, he's on the wrong side of his prime. But, I mean, some of these guys look pretty good to 36, 37, 38 these days. Middleton has, his body is completely fallen apart. So the Wizards, that might be one where they're like, look, Chris, we're going to play you what your body can handle. You go show these other teams you got something in the tank, and we'll try to get you moved to a contender, which makes him, again, somewhat barely, lightly, like a feather on a scale sort of weight version of intriguing in a games cap spot. But more than likely, I'm just going full dodge on Middleton the way we have the last 2 years, and it's worked out pretty well for us over those 2 seasons. That said, as we once again remind you of our partnership with our friends over at FanDuel, if you are, like, if you think Middleton and McCollum play pretty regularly until the All-Star break, the Wizards probably do go over that 20.5 wins. But I just like, this team has we're still tanking, boom, stamped hard on them. And I just see absolutely no reason why they wouldn't try to rocket to the bottom. The way that they get better is that the veterans, if you want to call Jordan Poole a veteran from last year, the veterans on the team now are better than the veterans were last year. So if someone was like, hey, would you rather have Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma running your team or CJ McCollum and Chris Middleton? That's a freaking no-brainer to end all no-brainers. So perhaps the Wizards remain competitive in a handful more ball games. And if you're competitive in more games, you might accidentally win a few. I don't know, man. I still don't think this team wants to even win 20 ball games. So I would look at the under, especially because it's a better value right now. But I don't think I want Chris Middleton. Where are we going next? How about Alex Sarr, who's probably the most predictable player on the Wizards from a role standpoint. He ramped up his playing time towards the end of last year. He was hovering right around 26, 27 minutes pretty much the entire season. Down the stretch, that went up by, a couple of minutes with 4 weeks to go, and another minute with 3 weeks to go, and another minute with 2 weeks to go, and he got up to like 28, 29 minutes down the stretch. So it wasn't like there was this big leap from 27 to 32. It was like from 26.5 to 28.5, basically. And from an efficiency standpoint, you pretty much couldn't be any worse. Alex Sarr, a big man, I don't... shot 39.5% from the field and 68% at the free throw line. For a while this year, he was able to float his value with good defensive stats. And make no mistake, his defensive stats were solid pretty much throughout the year. He ended up over 2 combined steals and blocks. But you just can't go anywhere when you're that bad on both percentages. Typically, if you're a big man and someone's in a big man build, you're punting free throw percent. Okay, great. But he's also a disaster in field goal. If you punted free throw only last year, Sarr got up to 136. If you punted field goal last year only, he got up to 117. If you punted both, he got inside the top 100, which tells you what? More of a points league guy. Odds are he probably gets a little bit better in at least one, possibly both of those 2 categories. Odds are he probably has a higher usage rate this year with no Jordan Poole around and better passers among the primary ball handlers in McCollum, Middleton, and you can even throw Carrington in there. Bub Carrington will probably handle the basketball more with no Jordan Poole around. Is it enough for me to take a plunge on Alex Sarr? Probably, but it's going to have to be late as hell. Like real late. Real late. I'm not taking him inside the top 100. He's not in my first group of flyers either, but he probably falls into that second group of flyers because you got to play the what if game. What if Alex Sarr fixes his free throw percent? Seems unlikely, but what if he suddenly shoots 80% at the foul line this coming year and he gets a big bump in usage? Then he's an awesome big man to pick up if you're a punt field goal build, which is like the Wemby build, effectively. He's Wemby light. What if he fixes his field goal percent, which again also feels fairly unlikely, but what if? Now he makes sense as a big man more in a punt free throw build. But again, if you add this all into probably more activity, you could see a points jump, you could see a playing time jump, which would mean rebounds, steals, and blocks all could go up as well. And one of the 2 percentages is what it would take for him to suddenly realize a little bit of that potential. If he doesn't fix either of them, which is, I would argue, the most likely outcome for this coming year, that's why you draft him really late, because then he ends up as more of a drop or someone that everybody sat on all season, praying that something good happens. But again, like, this team is going to tank, so he's going to get his opportunity, especially if the veterans get shut down or traded. But to me, he's kind of a second tier of flyers, and that's where I would leave him. Let's talk Bilal Coulibaly. Bilal Coulibaly. There was very little you could do to get him inside the top 100, which is a shame because he started the year really strong and then went through one of the most prolonged, god-awful shooting stretches that I have ever seen in my life. He started the year shooting like around 48, 49, 50%, and he looked like, he was top 75 in that range. I think he might have even been a little bit higher. And then he shot like 30% for a couple of months, something just awful that you simply can't have weighing your roster down. And again, much like Alex Sarr, you might see Coulibaly do a little bit more this year, which was kind of the hope this past season. Slowly do more, which he did. He went from 7 shots to 10.5, but it still wasn't enough. I like the steals. I like the blocks. That's kind of all I liked. He's a well-rounded fantasy player, much like Kyshawn George, who we're going to talk about in a minute here. These guys can do a little bit of everything, but you just can't be that bad in both percentages. Such is the plight of most of the Wizards regulars. Alex Sarr, bad at both percentages. Bilal Coulibaly, bad at both percentages. Kyshawn George, kind of bad at both percentages. Bub Carrington was an okay free throw shooter. Hooray! Justin Champagnie, who I don't plan on talking about on today's show, was better at field goal than free throw. At least with Jordan Poole, you had like big-time free throw helper. Now you got McCollum, bad at both percentages. Middleton might be okay at both, but man, that dude's body is not trustworthy. Ah, crap. I was supposed to mark down when we talked about FanDuel again. I totally forgot to do it. So we're just going to mention it one more time here. You get 3 mentions today, FanDuel. My head is right behind the FanDuel logo on YouTube. 3 mentions today of our buddies over at FanDuel Sportsbook. This one right around the 20-minute mark. That's an easy one for me to remember. Check them out, by the way. You can get down on the under if you think this team's as bad as they were last year. Almost muted myself in time for that cough. So why do I favor Alex Sarr over Coulibaly? Well, with Sarr, you've got that big buffer of blocks, which is one of the very hard categories to find. And so if you have somebody that can get them, it makes it easier for them to get to fantasy value. Coulibaly, I mean, yeah, could he fix free throw percent? Maybe. Probably a higher likelihood that he fixes his free throw percentage than Coulibaly does. Could Bilal fix his field goal? That's highly unlikely. The steals are good. I'll give you that. But, like, he played 33 minutes a game last year and still couldn't get anywhere near 9 category value without a whole bunch of combination punts. So, sorry, Bilal. I believed in you for like a month and a half last season, and now I'm back to not really believing in you again. Let's talk Kyshawn George, who I don't even know if he's going to start this year. The Wizards' starting 5 is a real mystery. It could be McCollum, Middleton, Bub, Sarr, and Coulibaly. You might punt one of the old guys to the bench and bring Kyshawn in as a starter. You might punt both old guys to the bench and bring Cam Whitmore on. I really don't know. Kyshawn George, also, much like Coulibaly, extremely well-rounded fantasy game. Good steals, good blocks, pretty good rebounds for his position. Better three-point shooter than Coulibaly, or at least takes more of them. But, like all these other guys, big issues with his percentages. How are we going to get over this? I really don't know. Kyshawn George had these stretches where enough guys were hurt that it looked like he was going to post some fantasy value. And when he got up to full starters minutes, he got very close because the steals, the blocks were excellent in full starters minutes. I don't know if he's going to get full starters minutes, but if I'm ranking the sort of guys I want to take a shot on this team, he is ahead of Coulibaly. He is likely behind Alex Sarr. So call him like a late second-tier flyer or an early third-tier flyer. But he has a lot of the same issues as Coulibaly, just makes more three-pointers, and I would argue might be a bit better at shot blocking. But I also don't know if that's a thing that's going to hold over an entire year. So probably not taking that plunge either, and we'll move through him pretty quickly. To Bub Carrington, who I also don't want to spend a ton of time on today's show, but there were a lot of Wizards that we needed to cover. Bub has his own fantasy issues. He played starters minutes down the stretch last year, and despite 35 minutes a game, 13 shots, 6.5 assists, 5.5 rebounds, 2.5 3-pointers, still sat outside the top 120 because he doesn't get any defensive stats. He's bad at both percentages. We've been down this path before. He might be serviceable in free throws if you give him enough of them, but he doesn't score very much. And he doesn't, and the defensive stats, I think I mentioned already, but like painfully low number there. And that to me was, especially once Jordan Poole got shut down, like, I don't know how much more Bub Carrington could do than he got the final 5 games last year. He was playing 38 minutes per game over that stretch. And he just barely squeaked inside the top 100 on 16.5 points, 3 threes, 5 boards, and 7.5 assists with bad percentages and no defensive stats to speak of. So, Bub, sorry, Bub, you are also in that third tier of flyer. Again, he is ahead in my mind of Coulibaly, who I just don't even really see a path. But behind Sarr, maybe you put him ahead of Kyshawn George for the assists, but only because someone like Bub Carrington, you could probably find a punt that makes him more valuable. Maybe not all the way to like top 100-ish, but getting there. But the most interesting player, arguably the most interesting player on the Wizards, is Cam Whitmore, because he still has the element of the unknown. The rest of these guys played minutes. Justin Champagnie, the funny thing is we're not talking about him on today's show, but Justin Champagnie is the guy that I would love to see play starters minutes because he can rebound like an you-know-what and big-time steals and blocks, and he's pretty good at field goal percent while also hitting a 3 or a 3.5 per game. Champagnie's the guy you want, but he's probably not going to get to play because he's more of the like, oh, we found something interesting here, but he's not part of our we need to see what we've got plan. But now Cam Whitmore, he's an interesting one because we don't know what he is when the minutes are in large capacity. Oh, sure. You can go through his game log with the Rockets, which is what I'm showing you guys on the screen right now, right? Yeah, you guys can see that. And you can find the games where he played 30 minutes. Here's one on January 3rd. He shot 4 for 17 that game. But, hey, I mean, he took 17 shots. That's what you should be looking at there. Scrolling. What's the barrier we're setting here? 28 minutes a game? 27 minutes, 59 seconds. We'll call that 28 minutes. That was 16 and 3 with 3 threes. That's okay. 39 minutes, 47 seconds on March 3rd. 27, 11 and 3, 2 steals, 3 blocks, and 4 3-pointers. Okay. 2 of the final 3 games of the year when the Rockets were going into let's give everybody a day off kind of deal. He had 14 and 5 against the Clippers. He had 34 and 8 against the Lakers. He ain't doing that. He's not getting 19 shots. But he will bomb away from three-point land. That you can be certain of. Cam Whitmore, if he gets decent minutes, he's going to give you a lot of 3 balls. A lot of them. You know, he was at 1.7 his rookie year and only 19 minutes a game. If he's getting 28 minutes plus, he's going to get you 3 threes a ball game. Feels almost inevitable. His field goal percent is not terrible for a guy that's going to hit a lot of 3-pointers. His free throw percent is not great. His steals, we haven't really seen them in full minutes, but I think they'd be okay. 1.1, something like that. He won't pass. Expect very low assists. But the unknown is what makes Cam Whitmore fun and interesting in this spot. It's an opportunity for a fresh start. It's an opportunity to go play a bunch of shooting guard minutes on a team that the shooting guards right now, I mean, it's probably CJ McCollum. Sarr is your center. Coulibaly, probably a small forward. Kyshawn George is playing power forward. Bub is probably your point guard. So your shooting guard, once the veterans are done, is probably Cam Whitmore. It does complicate things because he might get off to a slow start. It's a new team. He's acclimating himself. They're probably not going to just give him all of the usage when they have McCollum to go try to lead the young guys. But if you're thinking like, who's going to get crack at minutes off the bench, Whitmore's probably among them. And so to me, he's probably the guy you should be most interested in, if only because he probably does more as the season goes. We don't even know what the possible upside could be for Whitmore this year, where we pretty much know what it is for the other dudes that we just talked about. And what if, I mean, you get yourself in like a what if spot. What if Cam Whitmore becomes the next Cam Johnson? What if he gets to take 13, 14 shots a game? He's a monster if he gets that type of run. But, will he? Probably not. Probably not. If you're willing to wait, that's an easier call to make. So games cap format, you can squat on him for a while. Head-to-head, you're going to probably get something. He actually makes more sense on the head-to-head side. I think he's going to do something all year, and I think it's going to get better as we go. So head-to-head, yeah, he's probably a guy you look at in that 11th round territory, which again is sort of like the upper crust of the second-tier Flyers. I don't think the Wizards have what you'd call a traditional first-tier Flyer. Alex Sarr would be the closest there, but man, like, he's got to fix one of those 2 percentages. Got to. There's just, like, he's got no hope of getting to fantasy value if both of them remain terrible. So, as you look at this team, what the hell do we do? All right, well, let's go into recap mode as you look at the roster. CJ McCollum, don't think I'm drafting him head-to-head. Games cap, I think I would try to look at him in that 100 to 115 range as an interesting floor leader. Chris Middleton, I don't think I'm drafting in any format. Alex Sarr, lowest tier of first range flyers, maybe upper second tier flyers. So again, kind of like just back of where McCollum might be going. Coulibaly, more like a third tier flyer. Kyshawn George, probably more like a low second, third tier flyer. Bub Carrington, same kind of deal. And then Whitmore, more like up in that Sarr range of like the late first group of flyers. So I'll probably end up with a Cam Whitmore on some team of mine. I don't know which format it's going to be. I'm hoping it's the head-to-head one, but, we'll take it as it goes. And that's your Washington Wizards. Thanks again to our buddies over at FanDuel. That over-under is at 20.5. Will the old guys play long enough for them to get there? Who knows? See you guys again tomorrow. We'll wrap up the week. We're trying to do 5 shows a week now because, again, leagues could open at any moment, and I want to be ready to do a show on draft content, but we finished up the Southeast, so we're getting there. That's 20 out of 30 teams. Not bad. Hey, drop a 5-star review on the way out if you're listening on Spotify or Apple. Subscribe, no matter how you're taking in the content, and don't forget to hit that like button on YouTube. I'm Dan Bespers for Old Man Squad. I'll see you tomorrow.